Welcome back to another video, guys. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 key reasons why you're not super rich yet and what you can do to change this all from today. Now, you might be wondering already if these 3 reasons will even apply to you. Are there going to be some generic things? No, they're not. They will apply to you. Why? Is because these are fundamentals that if you don't master them, you will constantly have problems, whether it comes to acquiring wealth, when it comes to maintaining wealth and managing wealth, and when it comes to actually just keeping the wealth that you've made. Right, we all have heard about lottery winners who have made millions, then within 1-2 years, a lot of them lose it all. Why is that? It's because they haven't mastered these fundamentals. And what I'm going to be doing, so it's going to be a new series, all based on this book here. It's called The Rules of Wealth by Richard Templer. Now, this book I started reading recently, and already I'm getting some real good insights and seeing some real good results from this. And I wanted to actually share this with you guys, because I want you guys to follow along with this and make sure you're implementing these things. And what Richard actually did in this book is he's taken people who are very successful, very rich. He's seen some of the common traits that they have, and he's wrote a whole book where basically he's given 100 rules of wealth that you can follow to either 1, acquire wealth, or if you are already rich or class yourself as wealthy, how you can increase that even more. And also what I plan on doing, so for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Joshua Andre, and on this channel, basically, I share with you a lot of the tips that I've used over my lifetime so far and share them with you guys. And so if you're new to the channel, a bit of a background to me. Straight after uni, within a year, I was working on my dad's business. Straight after that, I invested in a high-ticket mentorship with a multi-millionaire. That allowed me to learn loads on that. And then within a year of that, I ended up shadowing him, working day in, day out, literally 7 days a week, seeing how his brain operates, how he works, how the business structure is, how everything aligns in that sense. So what I plan on doing in this series as well is not only giving you the quick tips from here, but also giving you some insights into what I've seen from not only my mentorship, from my business experience and going to collaboration with this millionaire as well and doing different ventures that did 6-7 figures. So I'm going to share with you some applicable things that you can actually take away. Not only book knowledge, but how you can apply it from today to literally start seeing results as early as today. So the first reason why a lot of people aren't wealthy, which I'm going to break down now, is think about this. A lot of the times people feel like money or wealth is almost selective. What do I mean by this? It comes from like our limiting beliefs. When we think of, for example, this person over there can be wealthy because of this, or I can't be rich because I don't have the education, or I have this background, or I have this life circumstance. But the first rule of wealth in this book states that anybody can acquire wealth. Money is not selective. I want you to really hear this, because if you don't at least subconsciously break this barrier, for some of you who may already have this limiting belief of whether you can make money, can't make money, or there's some reason stopping you from making money, if you can't get past this, then no matter the other 99 rules, none of them will help. So this first thing is understanding that at the end of the day, sometimes we have these things of maybe I'm too young, right? Maybe I'm too young right now, maybe I need to get some more experience. But I want you to think, if you can even look at this right now. On YouTube, there's someone called Ryan's Toys or Ryan's World. It's like when I last checked, he was around 7 years old and he's making hundreds of thousands or even millions every single month. Let me say that again. Every single month, this 7-year-old or however old he is now, I think when he started, he was around 5, is making hundreds of thousands or millions just by reviewing toys, right? He doesn't have that thing in his mind thinking that money won't come to me because I'm too young, right? Now, some of you are probably thinking, oh, but maybe his parents are doing stuff and it's not even him. Think about this. Are there teenagers, young teenagers who are making millions right now, right? So obviously there are so many young teenagers making millions, whether it's in crypto, NFT, online businesses, physical businesses, it's happening. So being young is not an objection. It's not a reason why you can't be wealthy. Equally, I know that some of you may even be saying something like, I'm too old, Josh. You know what? Yeah, they're young. They've got the tech abilities. They've got the know-hows. They know how to do this stuff online, but I'm too old. Let me ask you this. Are there people who are in their 60s or even 70s or even older who started their business in their 60s or 70s or older and still making significant amount of wealth? Of course. And sometimes these people may not even have the tech standards or tech know-how that you have. So literally there's no reason why money can't be attracted to you, why you can't generate wealth. And over the course of the last few years, I've literally coached almost 100,000 people, and I've seen that money has no boundaries. No matter whether you're white, you're black, you're Asian, no matter your upbringing. Even I've seen, and some of you may be aware of this, have you heard of some people who have literally been homeless. And then from being homeless, they ended up being multimillionaires, right? There's a really good actually thing that I was watching, I think around last year, about this guy who was homeless, sleeping in his car. Then within 1 year, he read a book about wealth, something like this. And then within 1 year, he was a millionaire and living his freedom lifestyle, doing his thing. So if you're watching this video, you've got Wi-Fi, you've probably got shelter over your head, a roof over your head, you've probably got food that you can eat. You're already in a better position than the person who's that homeless person who went from homeless to multimillionaire. So if they can do it, you can do it. And that really is the goal of this first point, is understanding that money is not selective. The only person who's selective is you. You being selective to yourself. So this first rule is really breaking down that have no limitations, have no boundaries. Money is just a physical object, an inanimate object that you can use to buy things, purchase things, exchange value. It doesn't decide, hey, I don't want to go to John because I don't like John. No, money will come to you as long as you have some sort of value, which we're going to be getting into in some of the later rules. But that's the first thing. Remember, anybody can create wealth, anybody can acquire money. It is not selective. Now, the second problem that a lot of people will face, especially when it comes to generating wealth or multiplying wealth, comes down to not defining what wealth means to them. Now, this is the second rule in this book, and it talks about you need to have a definition of wealth. You see, when people say wealth, what do you think of? What does wealth mean to you? And actually think of this right now, because one person will think that wealth means having £100,000 in the bank or $100,000 in the bank all the time, and then having extra money on top of that. But as long as they've got $100,000 in their bank, they feel wealthy. For another type of person, being wealthy is being happy, being healthy, being fulfilled, and having a certain amount of money. For another type of person, it might mean actually just having passive income that covers your expenses. So now you don't have to worry about your living costs, because your passive income coming in is covering your living costs, right? So then anything else that you make on top of it is all extra. So the second thing, and actually this is a very crucial rule, because Richard actually says in this book not to even read on until you complete this rule, right? So what you want to do is you want to actually think to yourself, what does wealth mean to me? When I think of being wealthy, what does it mean to me? Why? Is because if you don't set this target, if you don't actually understand what this means to you, then oftentimes what happens is very simple. It's almost as if you get into the car but have no destination of where you want to go, and then expect to get to the Maldives, or expect to get to Bali, or expect to get to somewhere else. If you don't have that destination of what that final thing is, what you classify that thing is, you won't be getting there. You'll be driving around for hours in circles. And maybe some of you guys have even experienced this already, that you feel like your finances are kind of running you around in circles. And it's crazy, because sometimes we think that, oh, to build wealth, to build riches, it takes this secret key or the secret formula to do it. But oftentimes we overlook the simple things that we could literally do right now to start getting a sense of direction. So what I want you to do right now is pause this video, have a think about what wealth means to you, whether it's a number that comes to your mind. And if a number pops to your mind, let's say it's, I don't know, $1 million, for example. Ask yourself, why $1 million? Why does that $1 million? Is it because that I need $1 million to live? Is it because that I need $1 million because $1 million just feels safe? Like it feels like, oh, I'll feel safe. So maybe wealth to you isn't the $1 million. Wealth to you is safety, is security. So then you can go deeper in, is it $1 million? If I had $500,000, would I feel safe? Would I feel secure? And if you say yes, okay, ask yourself, if I had $300,000, would I feel safe? Would I feel secure? And you can kind of find your range of what is that threshold where I know once I hit that, that is wealth for me. Let me continue building from that. So what I want you to do is either pause this video or have a think about this now, but don't just have a think about it. Also write it down on a piece of paper or somewhere that you'll be able to see every single day. Now, so for some of you, I know that you probably think, I don't need to do this. Just tell me the next rule and then I'm done, right? Or tell me, or let me see the next video after this and I'm done. But the reason why I'm saying to do this is because in life, they say, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you can't even do the little things, the foundational steps, like building that strong foundation of, okay, let me take this 5 minutes to myself to actually think about what this truly means to me. Not just think and sit there, like ponder a bit, but genuinely sit down and think about this. If you can't even do that, then actually the other 98 rules, there's no hope. because it's going to be getting more in depth, more detail. I'm going to give you more practical things that you can do that may take a lot longer than 5 minutes to just sit down with yourself and maybe for the first time in your life, actually think about what this word means for you. Second of all, the reason why I want you to do this is because have you ever noticed that when you're going to buy something, whether it's a new car, new watch, or let's just take a new car, right? Let's take a red Nissan, for example. Have you ever noticed that when you go to buy that car or you're looking around, all of a sudden, even if you haven't bought that car yet, because you're looking at that type of car, let's say it's a red Audi, right? Now all of a sudden you start seeing red Audis everywhere, right? You never saw them before, but now you start seeing them. Why is this? This is because we have something in our mind, whether if you're in the spiritual community, you might say law of attraction, right? Manifesting, like attracts like, all that sort of stuff. Or if you're in the more scientific community and thinking more logically, then there's something called the reticular activating system. And so what this system does, it basically allows you to hone in on things that you classify as being important in your reality, right? Because right now they say that you have around 10 million bits of information streaming into you in every moment, right? But out of those 10 million bits, you can't process that consciously. You can only process around 40 bits of that information. So what does this mean? It means that you choosing what wealth means to you, you writing it down in a place what you can see every day is telling your brain that this is important to me. Telling your brain to not only think of ways to allow this to happen, but also see things that are already happening in the reality, whether it's opportunities, whether it's people presenting themselves, whether it's things that you was working on in the past projects now coming to the forefront of your mind. It basically puts this in your mind. Now, Richard doesn't say this to do this in the book, but I'm saying this now because I've seen, like I said, I've trained almost 100,000 people, and the difference between those who actually get the results of what I'm sharing with them, whether it's marketing, whether it's personal development, whether it's spirituality, and the difference between those who don't, I can tell the same thing to two different people. One person will, one person won't. And the pure and simple difference is the effort that they put into this, right? The energy that you put into this is the energy that you get back. So the second thing is defining what wealth means to you. Now, the third rule of wealth, to finish this video up, so this first video that I'm doing here is going to cover the first 3 rules. Then over every week, I'm going to be releasing new rules every single week so you can follow up with them, catch up, get the notes, etc. This third rule to wealth is basically once you have your definition of wealth, what objectives, what goals do you need to strive towards to achieve that? Now, first of all, I want to be very clear here that I'm not saying that you need to know exactly the step-by-step of how to make that $1 million or how to make that $100,000 or how to make that 10 million. I'm not saying that, right? Because that can be overwhelming and you probably don't even have the skills or know-how yet that you would do to get that particular goal, because you're going to acquire them over the course of learning this stuff and implementing. However, you can know roughly, and in the book, Richard defines this as basically defining your objectives, right? This is the third rule of wealth, define your objectives. He doesn't say it has to be anything complicated. He sums it up in literally one sentence where you can say, let's say, for example, your goal is to be a millionaire. Now for you, your thing is deciding, okay, I want to be a millionaire, but by what date? Like roughly what date, what year, right? Is it going to happen next month? Is it something that I aspire to have 6 months time, 1 year's time, 2 years time, 5 years time, 10 years time, right? Setting yourself a loose goal. But then also be defining roughly maybe like what industry. How are you going to venture? How are you going to strive towards doing this? Is it going to be in real estate? Is it going to be an online business? Is it going to be specifically fitness, right? Maybe you don't know what specifically it's going to be, but you know it's going to be online. So having roughly not only your definition of wealth, but having almost like creating yourself a little playbook. Okay, this is my definition of wealth, and this is roughly the direction that I want to go in to acquire this, right? Because if you don't have these objectives, what can happen is you can know the destination, but kind of feel a bit overwhelmed in what's happening now, in which step to take, in what to do. I don't know if you're feeling that right now. Maybe you have watched so many videos online about making money, so many ways to make money online, so many ways to acquire wealth. But then it's kind of like, which one do I do? What one do I start with? Now, I want to also say, this is very important because so many times I see this, and I don't want this to happen to you, genuinely don't want this to happen to you, is when people tend to either fall into 2 traps here. They will either define a goal based on somebody else, right? Whether it's family, friends, or something they see online, they think, oh, that person acquired wealth like this, let me do that. But it's not actually true to their heart, right? And in this chapter, let me be specific right now. So Richard actually says that when you're defining your objective, you need to be realistic, honest, and make it achievable. Now, I don't fully agree with everything that was said in this point here, and I'm going to explain why in a second and how you can actually use this to go even further than this. But what Richard means, just very quickly to simplify, is being realistic is something that you genuinely know could potentially happen, right? Not something like, for example, he classified in the book not being realistic as being the richest person in the world, right? Yes, there's a possibility it could happen, but it's not very realistic. So he says, be more realistic. He also says, be honest with yourself, which is what I'm talking about here, where it's something that you know that you could live with, and also you're not lying to yourself, you're not lying to your friends and your family when you're doing this, right? But basically the main thing, you're not lying to yourself that this is something that you could do when it's something that you couldn't do. And then also achievable in the sense of, if you know nothing about property and you really hate learning about property or doing anything to do with property, probably it's not achievable. Why? Because if you didn't know anything about property, but you actually enjoyed or wanted to learn about it, it could be achievable. Why? Because you can learn that. But if you detest it, don't want to learn about it, probably not achievable because you don't enjoy it and you probably won't work towards it. So those are the three things. The reason why I said there's two traps is the first one is not being true to yourself. What is your true goal? But the second one is also allowing almost like false things to influence your mind, right? So this all comes back to these two traps. You can overcome them by being true to your heart, being true to what actually resonates with you and you want to strive towards to acquire wealth or riches. Now, when it comes to these objectives, the third and final thing, the last thing that I want to mention about this is something that's very key when you're doing this, is because the thing that I mentioned about when I don't fully agree with everything that Richard said about the realistic and the coming from heart and then the achievable is because I know for me, looking back on my journey, if I was to set realistic goals, I know for a fact I wouldn't have achieved 10% or 20% of what I've achieved to this day, right? What do I mean by this? Let me take an example of, for example, around 4 years ago, if you met me, I was super shy, awkward, introvert, didn't like speaking in public, didn't like speaking to like more than one person. Even when I spoke to one person, I felt social anxiety. If you was to tell me to set a realistic goal back then, my realistic goal would just be to have a bit more confidence so that I could maybe not feel so shy around people. That would be my realistic goal. But back then, something possessed me. I have no clue what did, but something possessed me to set a goal that was so unrealistic that it scared me. What do I mean? So I set this goal that I wanted to be a public speaker, speaking on stages in front of groups of people, sharing knowledge and helping them. Now, I don't know why I set that goal, because every time I thought about that goal, not even like actually did it or did anything to it, like just thought about it, my heart will be beating so fast, I'll get like so much anxiety. But I knew that I wanted to do that. Why? Because deep in my heart, that was something that I felt. Now, if I listened to being realistic, I would never have achieved that goal like I did in the year that I achieved it and then surpassed it within even the year and a bit, right? Because I would have been realistic and just strive towards that realisticness. But because I strive for more, and this is where the fine balance is. This is the final thing I want to share in this video. This is the fine balance between actually being realistic and being too optimistic. Right? There's a fine line in between this area of being way too optimistic, like head in the clouds, probably never going to happen, and being realistic that keeps you in that box. If you can find that fine line somewhere in the middle where it kind of seems unachievable or unrealistic, but it's a deep desire, deep intention for you, but you know that it could actually happen if you work towards it. So that fine line, usually when you find that fine line, it will oftentimes be a goal that probably scares you or unsettles you. So that's when you know that you're roughly in that right direction. If your head's in the clouds and you're just like, yeah, $10 gazillion, that's it, I'm done, and it doesn't really scare you, then probably you're not quite associated with it. Probably your mind doesn't believe it, and you're just going to strive in the wrong direction. So these are the three rules. First rule is know that money isn't selective. Anybody can acquire wealth. Second rule is setting your definition of wealth. What does wealth mean to you? The third rule is then defining some loose objectives as to roughly which direction you want to take to achieve your wealth. So those are the three rules, guys. In summary, what I would like to say again, make sure to do rule number 2 if you haven't already. Write it down. If you want to write it in the comments as a public declaration as well, this has been shown to increase your chances of actually achieving the goal when you declare it publicly and have some sort of accountability there. You can leave it in the comments, but at least write it down somewhere where you can see every single day. So this is the first video in this series. I'm going to be doing a video every single week for you guys to get updated with the next 3 rules or 4 rules or 5 rules or however many rules I feel fit for that video to make sure that you can make this year your most wealthiest, your most prosperous, your most happiest, your most fulfilling year ever. But for now, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like so you can let me know. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, peace.